With the student government election coming up this Tuesday through Thursday, Maroon TV had the opportunity to interview each of the executive slates. Maroon TV's political reporter Sean Graf interviewed Impact Slate.
Joining me now is Michael McCown, Jane Huber, and Sophia Flores from Impact Slate, and we're going to talk about the upcoming election next week. Michael, I want to start with you. You told the Maroon it would be good to have a progressive voice interacting at high levels with the administration. So what are your plans to increase communication with the administration, and what do you mean by a progressive voice?
Okay. Well, I don't think that increased communication is necessarily what I meant. What I meant was that the student governments that we have had have not taken up a lot of issues that we think are pretty important, such as making sure that there are adequate mental health care services, making sure that our sexual assault policy is clear so that students who have a problem know when they start the policy how it's going to, or when they start the process, how it's going to end up at the end of the process, and so that they have all the information that's sort of required of them. Let's see, in addition, I guess what I mean by progressive is taking on like more challenging sort of political issues that the university faces. I think that a lot of students have expressed support for things like socially responsible investment. 2 years ago, 80% of the student body in a referendum said that that was something they supported, and then student government never followed through on trying to make that happen. And so student government already has a lot of interaction with administration. So it's not like increasing that interaction. I think that there is already that access. It's just making sure that the issues are being put in front of administrators.
Right. So do you support the ballot measure this year that's going to be voted on again, I believe, about divestment from socially irresponsible companies?
Well, it's specifically, it's not exactly divestment, but it's about not continuing to invest in like fossil fuel corporations.
But do you support that?
Corporations? Yes, I do. I think that this is an issue, a very challenging issue facing our whole sort of society. I know I'm from Texas. 2 summers ago, I went home, and we've been in a drought now for years and years. Our lake levels are at 40%, and the whole area around my hometown of Austin was just on fire. And smoke was just everywhere in the air.
So it's something you strongly do support?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to now go to Jane. Now, Jane, you also as a group have talked about the importance of issues that the university needs to talk about, such as racism and homophobia on campus. But the university has a policy in their manual which states, quote, the ideas of different members of the university community will frequently conflict, and we, the university, do not attempt to shield people from ideas that they may find unwelcoming, disagreeable, or even offensive. So therefore, the university says in their policy that they really do not want to try to get involved in like freedom of speech and student thought. So what do you think how can the university walk that fine line, or do you think that policy needs to be changed?
Well, I think there's a pretty clear distinction between issues of offensive speech, which is a pretty intangible idea, and hate speech. And I think hate speech encompasses the idea of homophobia and really sort of incredibly strong anti-gay sentiment, as well as racism. And we've seen instances of racism really plague our campus, particularly lately.
Which I wanted to bring up with the Facebook group
politically incorrect.
Politically incorrect. That was a Facebook group that was created, and basically what it was encouraging students to post any sort of comment, and many of them were viewed as racist and insensitive. So I was curious what you thought the university should do to address that.
Okay, on that specific issue. So when it was the U Chicago politically incorrect, I think the university had some jurisdiction to at least speak outwardly against the instances of racism, because we're a community that needs to foster diversity and inclusiveness, regardless of sort of, you were saying the idea of controversial speech, but when it comes to hate speech, the university needs to draw a strong line. Now that the Facebook group has changed its page, to Hyde Park,
Right.
the university actually doesn't have official jurisdiction over it. So
you think they took the appropriate steps to somehow get them to change the name or?
I mean, I'm personally very, very against the page and against its racist content. But in terms of like what the university has the right to do, I think now that the name has changed, I don't think that the university has jurisdiction to shut it down.
Okay, so now I want to turn to Sophia and talk more about, I guess, technical sort of issues. So you are all, none of you are graduate students. Some of the other slates running, I think, actually have graduate students on their basically slate people running. Also, so you are third year, a second year, and a first year, right? And so the question is, how are you going to be able to attract basically graduate students and get them involved in student government? Because student government doesn't just represent the undergraduates, it represents the graduates. So what is your way to reach out to them to get them to vote for you, but also to make sure they're represented in the body among this slate?
So we have really good relations with the grad student union on campus. It's a sort of like an RSO on campus that like
It's a union.
It's a union, but
Yeah,
like
it's a recognized union.
but it also so they like are really issue based and like understand the issues that grad students have. So we've built a relationship with them and like have had a really long relationship with. I've worked with them like within the RSOs that I do, and so has Michael. So I feel like I'm very aware of the issues in regards to grad students, and I've talked to like grad students on the grad student council and sort of talked about like where like what they've been like pushing for in grad council and like what their issues are. So I'm not too.
You don't
concerned
find
with
that to be an issue. And then the last thing I would ask is, so how are you going to encourage people to vote for you coming next week when the elections are running between Tuesday and Thursday? Like, what is your, I guess, plan to drive out the vote and get people to vote for you? And what is your last final push and plea to the voters in Chicago, I guess?
So we're doing like a get out the vote sort of thing. We have like a pretty broad base of like organizations we've been working with that we've worked with to develop our platform, and that's really where our issues are coming from. They're coming from like students on campus who have like been pushing for these issues but haven't had an outlet for them. So we're pushing get out the vote through that, and just like we feel like we've gotten a lot of broad support from like people who aren't necessarily in those groups as well, just via Facebook and stuff. So we're inviting everyone to sort of help us get out the vote, like flyering, sort of more campaigny, organizing.
And you're confident, even though none of you have been in student government before, that you'll be able to adequately represent the student body and work with the administration to achieve the goals that you've laid out?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've never worked in student government, but like all of us have sort of worked on campaigns, like political campaigns. I've worked in an alderman's office. I mean, me and Michael have done organizing. Jane's really involved in like the organizing sphere as well. So I feel like that is a strength in us, is that like, yes, we haven't done we know how to do the bureaucratic business of SG, like through doing RSOs, like you sort of like have to learn how to manage a budget or like how to do annual allocations. So I'm not too worried about that. I think what we have that's fresh is like a more political and strategic background in regards to issues.
I guess one thing that I might add to what Jane was saying is that in addition to just like the university dealing with a particular incident, I think that we should be trying to foster a culture on campus that really, when we talk about dialogue and debate, really actually tries to go to the root of where a lot of these like sentiments that people are expressing are coming from. We have like Chicago Life meetings and people get asked questions like, if you saw two black people approaching you at night on the street, like would you, but the university seems, I think, a little too okay with like sort of ending those conversations there. And I think that we really need to be talking about, well, what are the social factors? What are the historical factors? What are all of the reasons that people would feel this way? All of that kind of thing. And then try and like really address the issue and not just like the one instance of the Facebook page, because it's really representative of a much bigger problem.
Broader problem. Okay. Thanks so much for joining us. Good luck in the election next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.